Cougs, welcome to our very first Uncorked with Cougs. You are in for a treat with some amazing ladies today. I am Kelly Brantner, Director of Membership and Marketing for the best alumni association in the universe, Washington State University Alumni Association, and I have had the pleasure of running our wine club, not since its inception in 2006, but for the last few years. So before we officially get everything started, I'm going to ask each of our fantastic panelists to introduce themselves and say just a little bit about what at WSU prepared you for a career in the wine industry. Melanie, let's start with you.
Okay, sure. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. So I'm Melanie Krause. I'm the owner of Cinder Winery down in Boise, and my husband and I are both Cougs, as well as all my aunts, uncles, and my parents. So a long line of Cougars. And you know, I have a Spanish degree and a biology degree, just general biology. I graduated, and the year after I graduated was when they started all the cool enology programs. So I kind of missed that. But my basic biology degree, honestly, was just as important as my Spanish degree for what I do now, where I have 6 vineyards I contract with for grapes. And I go out and I visit them every couple weeks, and I talk to the growers and I talk to their crew. And so being able to speak Spanish is really helpful for getting what I want done. That's kind of the surprising thing. Everybody knows that biology is going to be helpful in winemaking, you know, but the Spanish has been really crucial too. And then my work experience was really what got me my first job in the wine industry. I worked in the crop and soil science department in the winter wheat breeding lab. And it was that agricultural job that was really, I think, clinched the deal for my first job in viticulture. And my first job in viticulture was at Chateau Ste. Michelle. And that kind of started me off on my pathway. So WSU was totally awesome for my preparation.
Thank you. Annette.
Hi, I'm Annette Bergevin, founding partner and general manager of Bergevin Lane Vineyards. We started our winery 18 years ago. I was 12, just so you know. 18 years ago, I moved back home to Walla Walla. I'm 5th generation Walla Wallan, and it was this exciting time to come into the wine industry. There were maybe 30 wineries in the valley, and so started the winery. I graduated WSU with this crew. I won't tell anybody the year because we've already had that conversation, and they all were teasing me that I really am a cougar. But I majored in communications. So unlike these two, who are these brilliant women winemakers, I'm winery manager, owner, do a little bit of everything. But I graduated with a communications degree. So I have an intense fear of speaking in public. So it helped me for wine dinners, things like this, Zoom meetings. And I also had a minor in psychology. And for me, it's the most fun thing to figure out why people love wine when they come into the tasting room and just connect with them and hear their stories.
Thank you. Coco.
Hello, I'm Coco Umiker, and my husband and I started Clearwater Canyon Cellars back in 2004. And I spent quite a bit of time at WSU. I actually did my PhD there, and I did a doctorate in food science and studied wine microbiology, actually. My expertise is in Decara bruxellensis. So most people know that as Brett. So many people might have opened a bottle of wine and taken a sniff, and it smelled a little bit like a Band-Aid, a little barnyardy. There's a yeast that causes that taint in wine, and that is what I studied. I studied the detection and control of that. I had such a good time there. The work I did actually took me to even the East Coast, into the, I collaborated with Cornell University a little bit, and actually ventured down into Chile and shared some of the technologies that we developed at WSU down there with their wine industry, and got a chance to participate in this exchange of information with them, which was really cool. I'm a huge fan of Carmenere and Malbec, and brought some of those little tidbits of knowledge back to the winery and to WSU.
Fantastic. Ladies, I think that the Coug Nation is so lucky to get to hear what you're going to have to say. But first, I do think we need to officially start this off with a cheers. So cheers.
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 So we did ask people what were some of the things that they wanted to hear from you. So we're going to have some of those questions in today. And one of those is, what do customers ask you most? So Melanie, let's start with you.
Well, I think the most frequently asked question I get is, how did you get into the wine industry? Everybody's fascinated by that. And I think half the people I meet, they're interested in the wine and they like to, fantasize a little bit. Like, could I do a career change real quick here in the middle of, my 50s or whatever, and become a winemaker? But so my origin story has a lot to do with WSU. My last year that I was there, I met this guy named Joe Schnur. He was a chemistry major, and we started dating, but I already had a job to go teach English in China, nothing to do with my education or anything. I just wanted to travel, needed a way to pay for it. So I broke up with him. He moved to Umatilla, Oregon to manage a chemistry lab. And I thought, well, this is the end. I went to China, he went to Umatilla. Like, we're never going to get together again, right? Totally different places. But after about 6 months of being in China, I decided, well, that guy was pretty cool. And maybe having dinner with him in Umatilla, which I'm not very fond of, would be better than traveling the world by myself. So I called him up. I asked him if he would date me again if I moved back to the States. He said he would. So now I'm presented with the problem of, what am I supposed to do with myself and my degrees in Umatilla? It's a tiny town. Everybody who's been to WSU might have passed through it if they've ever driven towards Boise, but it's that last gas station, or it's the first gas station as you're driving to Oregon and you cross the Columbia River. So not much to do there, but fortunately there's the wine industry. I figured out as soon as I started to look for jobs, it was like, okay, Washington wine industry, the vineyards are right there across the river. And that was like a light going off in my head, because I had these degrees that were helpful. My parents are hobby gardeners. They have 45 different varieties of grapes in their garden in Boise. So it all just kind of fit together, and got my first job at Chateau Ste. Michelle, and the rest is history. Started Cinder 14 years ago, I think now.
Excellent. Coco, what do people ask you the most?
Oh, actually, they ask me a very similar question. They oftentimes, when they're the second most, so I don't want to repeat the same question. So the second most common question people ask me is just about the farm and why we chose to put the winery here. So our winery is actually located in Lewiston, and this region, so we're actually on my family's century farm. So my family actually bought this piece of land in 1916, and our family is only the second family to have owned the land. So we bought it from the family that bought it as part of the Homestead Act. And my family, my great-grandparents came here in 1916. And I've always had a huge amount of pride for Lewiston, the Lewis-Clark Valley, my family's time here on this farm. And as my husband and I, so ours is also kind of a love story, Melanie. So as Carl and I started to fall in love together and fall in love with wine, we realized that this place, my family's farm, actually had all the things that could lead to fantastic grape growing and winemaking. The Lewis-Clark Valley was a huge area for winemaking and grape growing back pre-Prohibition. And I think for us, there was such an allure to bring that back. Prohibition killed it. So when Prohibition came along, the vintners of the time just kind of stopped doing what they were doing because it was illegal and there was no use there weren't enough the Catholic there were not enough Catholic churches here in town to drink up all the communion wine, and so there was such a desire to bring wine back to the valley. We knew it had been done well here back in the day, and I wanted to taste that. And so there was a desire for that, a desire to bring this to my family's farm and bring it into the next century. It's pretty amazing now to be here making a living on my family's Idaho Century farm, doing something that we love, and to have resurrected an old industry here is pretty cool.
That's really cool. Coco, so one of these wines that I'm drinking tonight has a really cool picture. It's hard to see in this, but can you tell us about this wine that we're tasting? It's delicious.
Yeah. So you're drinking with Louis Del Sol tonight, Melanie. He's quite a heartbreaker.
Very charming.
Yes, he's very charming. So we make a Cabernet every year called the Louis Del Sol Cabernet Sauvignon. And it is, so Louis was the first commercial grape grower and winemaker here in the valley. He planted his first vineyard in 1872. And it is his shoulders that we all stand on. He was apparently a really fun guy. He lived to be 99. He threw some fantastic parties. And he actually died on the anniversary of the repeal of Prohibition, 3 years after the repeal of Prohibition. And so I'm not sure if it's true, but our theory is that Louis was having one heck of a party celebrating the repeal of Prohibition at 99 and maybe just had a little too much that night.
I like it.
What a way to go.
Yeah, but that wine, the Louis Del Sol Cab is made exclusively from grapes grown here in the Lewis-Clark Valley, and is a blend across 3 vineyards here.
Great.
So, we want to keep this positive and happy and all of those things. At the same time, we just found out today that the governor had extended the stay home, stay healthy. And so one of the things that the Alumni Association did is, you can see the URL right there, alumni.wsu.edu/stay-home-drink-wine. And so what you will find on that is a list of Cougar connected wineries that have maybe added curbside pickup. They may be doing delivery. You might even find shipping or wine sales on there. So definitely check out that site. But my question, and Annette, we'll start with you, is how has the pandemic affected your business? What have you had to do to adjust your daily business? And looking forward, what impacts, challenges, and maybe even opportunities do you see coming out of this?
That's a really good question, and it's been on our minds since the day that this was announced. We were slated to open a brand new tasting room downtown Walla Walla, and it's sitting there. I sat there yesterday at my tasting bar and stared out at nothingness. But I'm thinking too, maybe it's a good thing because we want everybody to stay healthy. So in our business where our tasting room is currently downtown, we have implemented curbside pickup. People have been so supportive in calling in and ordering online. I mean, that's things that have happened that have helped us keep our business going during this time and keep our employees in working. We have a really small team, so every little bit helps. But we're now starting to look at maybe online reservation systems. And again, we're pretty small, so we're trying to figure out maybe economies of scale where we can band together to create a reservation system, even maybe for Walla Walla, which I think would be fantastic. So I'm trying to name that Walla Walla Reserve. So you think not just wine, but reserve this experience. And so we're looking at that. And I think, as we just learned today, so we're still kind of trying to absorb all of this. We have shelter in place until May 31st, but we'll be phasing into this process. And so I don't specifically know how that will affect wineries yet. I know in phase 2, restaurants can maybe have 50% of capacity. And I'm trying to kind of understand how we'll incorporate that into our tasting room. But we do have spaces that small groups could come together and taste, 6 feet apart. And I really want to make sure I keep my team safe. So we're just going to keep rolling with the punches and appreciate everybody who's out there supporting their local wineries. Thank you. Cheers to you.
To them. Melanie or Coco, do you guys want to add anything about what's working for you, what you're trying?
Sure. So we're going to focus on trying to keep people outside on the patio as things loosen up here. We have a really small team as well, and so our focus is to try to keep people out of the tasting room probably at least through the end of June. We're kind of thinking. We'll see. We're just really kind of trying to take it little by little and look at what everybody else is doing, look at the recommendations. But we have a very small tasting room here, so it's hard for me to imagine being able to keep people well spaced in here. But we have a large patio space out around the winery, and so looking at that as an asset, we're really going to work on getting a tasting bar going out there, as we feel like it's safe to allow that. For the time being, we're just doing curbside, and that's been working out really well. People have been ordering wine and chatting with us about the wines over the phone and via email. It's super sad. I wish we could have people in the tasting room. But it's a decision we'll have to make kind of for each of us. We'll have to make for ourselves, given what our facility is like. And so we'll just probably wait for quite a while before we let people back in the tasting room, just because it's so small.
So Coco, you talked about people calling in. One of the things that I'm really hoping we can focus on today is for all of our wine-loving Cougs that cherish that tasting room experience. I know it's one of my most favorite things to do. And yes, I want to do everything I can to flatten the curve, but I'm like, did it have to be a tasting room? So what can people do? What advice do you have for people that are trying to find wine when traditionally what they've done is go to a tasting room and they've bought that bottle they've got to try? And I'll open it up to anyone. Hopefully we won't have too many microphone fights on the Zoom. But what would you say, what advice do you have for Cougs that are looking for new wine or trying to find wine?
Go for it, Melanie. You do it.
Yeah, I was thinking Melanie.
You next.
Well, we were chatting about this a little bit, and Coco was talking about the idea that if you know that you've liked wines from a certain winery before, then that's going to be quite easy, or you should feel comfortable reordering from a winery you're already comfortable with, because usually a winemaker will have a house style, and most of their wines will kind of have a through line of style. So might be a really fun time to get a mixed case and try through various things. And lots of people are doing these online and virtual tastings. So that's a fun way to explore stuff. I know, like at Cinder, we're doing an online tasting every Friday. And so we're working our way through the 7 wines that we released this spring. We've already done Syrah we did today, Malbec last week, and a Portuguese dry blend that we made, that was 3 weeks ago. So little by little, having a lot of fun tasting through these different wines. I'd encourage people to just kind of look at wineries they've enjoyed in the past, or ones that their friends swear by, and go online and start exploring. Could be fun. It's a good way to, think positive.
Speaking of delicious wines, Annette, I'm tasting this right now.
The Wild Child.
The Wild Child. It's delicious. It's so intense. The tannins are big. It's just rich. Tell us about this. It's so yummy.
It's one of those, we have a lot of people that come into the tasting room and they swear they do not like Merlot. And I don't know if it's the Sideways movie or if it's just they've decided they've outgrown it. And they're like, I don't like it. And our favorite thing to do, what's that?
I think it's Sideways, because we get that all the time too.
We do too, all the time. And I love Merlot, and we grow it in our estate vineyard.
It's fantastic. I love Merlot as well. And it's something that we love to blind taste people, because it takes all of your kind of preconceptions away. Like, you'll know if it's red or white or rosé, but then that's all they know. And we'll put a glass of Merlot into their hand. And we've heard, I don't like Merlot. And we're like, well, try this. And this is later down the road. And they'll go, oh my gosh, this is really good. I love it. What is it? And we go, it's Merlot. So it's fun to let people try things without, these preconceived notions. And that's what we try to do in the tasting room. So our Merlot is 82% Merlot, and then it has 8% each. And I'm going to cheat real quick here because it's Malbec and Cab Sauv. So we do a little bit of blending there, but it's a little bigger, a little fuller bodied, a lot of stone tree fruit in there from the Wahluke Slope. And then the balance is from our Bergevin Springs Estate Vineyard. And it was something you said, Coco, it was kind of fun. Our family's been farming the land where our vineyard's grown since 1903. So it was dry land farming, but it's just been kind of this natural evolution into the vineyard. And that's really it's kind of an ode to my dad, who got all of us on this wine loving journey, and it turned into wine and food. And then people, like everybody, when you're drinking a glass of wine, it's really hard to be cranky or having a bet. I mean, it just makes everything better. So thank you, Coco.
Yeah, it's delicious. It's really huge. Yeah, I'm amazed by it. I love it. Why the name Wild Child?
Well, that's one of those secrets that once all of this shelter in place is over, you have to come to the winery, and then we'll share the name.
Okay.
How we named it. There's kind of a fun name for all of them. So we try to keep what's in the bottle serious, but we like to have fun with winemaking as well.
Good.
So let's switch it up just a little bit. I have enjoyed asking you questions, both that we came up with and also submitted by some of our fantastic fans. But let's turn the tables a little bit. What would you guys like to ask each other?
Oh, interesting.
So, Coco, do you bike a lot still? Are you bike racing at all? Backstory here is that, am I on the microphone yet? Coco and I met because we were both cyclists, me for the WSU team and Coco for the U of I team. So, and Carl as well, although I don't think you guys were dating, or if you were, you hit it really well, because I didn't have any inkling of it till I met you way after college. And then I was like, what? You two got married? That's crazy. But we used to bike race together, and it was really fun. And I was just wondering, do you still do that?
So we're joy riders now. We no longer race. We just ride and hike and run whenever we can. We still love bikes. We have way too many bikes. I don't know if you still have this problem, but we have way too many bikes in our garage. But there's just not enough time probably for us to train and race anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I don't know that I want to. I think I could probably make time if I wanted to, but I just am all about just smelling the roses when I have time off and enjoying a bike ride and not being too competitive about it. How about you? Are you riding anymore?
Just for fun, and we've managed to whittle our bike collection down to just one bike each, a mountain bike.
Whoa.
I know. Whoa. My ski collection is still much bigger than my bike collection. But yeah, the road biking in Boise, there's gotten to be a little too much traffic, so we just only do mountain biking now.
I would agree with that. I haven't touched my road bike in a long time, but I still ride my mountain bike quite frequently. The roads are a little too scary for me anymore. Back in the day when we were in college, it was quite safe to ride road bikes. I don't think people were texting and driving or anything back then. Is that dating us? I'm feeling old suddenly.
Go easy, Coco. I have a question, Melanie. I'm trying this beautiful Viognier. I'd love to hear about that.
Sure, yeah. Well, Viognier is kind of our flagship wine for the winery because, for one thing, it was one of the wines that drew me back to Idaho. So I had become a winemaker in Washington, and I was always spying though on the Boise area, and I got myself a position as a judge in the Idaho wine competition for about 3 years in a row. And there were only about 10, 15 wineries at the time, compared to 50 or 60 now. So much smaller just 15 years ago. And one of the varieties that I just noticed was so outstanding was the Viognier. About 5 wineries were making it. They all had glorious aromas. And so I knew if I moved back to Boise and made that decision that Viognier would be something I would focus on for sure. And so it has been a focus. It was a huge hand sell in the beginning, but now it's one of our biggest production wines. And I think that we can grow it as well here as anywhere in the world. So we're really just into it. I mean, I don't know if you want any like nerdy winemaking details or anything, but I'd be happy to divulge them if you're interested.
Oh, it's lovely. Like barrel fermented?
That's almost all steel, stainless
All steel.
Yeah. I mean, we do a few barrels, but that's really just a logistical thing so that we can have some wine to top our tanks with when we're done fermenting. So it's probably like 85% stainless steel and then neutral barrels.
Do you go through malolactic fermentation?
No.
None. Okay.
Nope. We just,
Lovely.
as soon as it's dry, we start getting it cleaned up and we bottle it like the first or second week in January. So we really push hard to bottle it quick and capture all the freshness, all the aromas before they have any time to escape us out of the
They're
tank.
just popping out of the glass.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I try to make it fresh. I think one thing that I do maybe a little bit different from other Viognier makers is I try to pick just as soon as those flavors come into like a peach profile. And I don't worry too much about getting it any riper than like 22, 23 bricks, which is a little low, I think, for Viognier, but that helps it pop. Keeps it fresh and high acidity and stuff like that.
So I have a question for you guys. One of the things that brings me an immense amount of joy is when everyone has the same thing in their glass and everyone loves it. I am usually, I mean, I like a lot of wines, but I'm usually a big red fan, and my best friend is a sweet white fan. So trying to find something in the middle that works. And one of the things that we found is, Annette, your Love Struck Viognier is something that brings us lots of joy. So is a Viognier something that is that usually like a good wine for, let's just pretend for a minute we can get back together again. And when we can, is that sort of like a wine that most people like, or when you're looking at a group of people, because I cannot wait to be able to gather in a group again. What is a great group wine?
I think that's a tricky one because every varietal has a little different flavor profile. And so when we're talking about wines, you have your Chardonnay fans and you have your Viognier fans, and they really are completely different wines. And then whether it's stainless steel fermented, barrel fermented, they've gone through malolactic or not. One of the ones that I find that people kind of can all sort of agree on, and it's more like kind of, we call it easy drinking. For our Cougs, maybe we call it a porch pounder. Super easy drink, maybe a Sauvignon Blanc, or like a rosé, maybe meet in the middle. What do you guys think?
It's pretty hard to please everybody. Oh, I was gonna say, well, pretty hard to please a whole group, but you did mention Viognier, and I think most white wine drinkers enjoy our Viognier, but we do convert a lot of people who are all I drink is reds. There's no way I'm going to enjoy a white. We convert a lot of them back to whites with Viognier. So it's a fairly like big wine. Maybe it could satisfy some red wine drinkers, and obviously most white wine drinkers are going to enjoy a nice Viognier. So
that's the one white wine. My dad is a self-proclaimed red wine fan, and that's the one white wine he will drink is a Viognier.
Yeah, interesting. That's what we find too with our customers.
Yeah, I think dry, flavorful white wines or rosés can sometimes be that meet in the middle wine. Our rosé that's lurking behind Annette's shoulder there is kind of that wine for us. It's dry, very flavorful. We've converted some self-proclaimed strictly red wine drinkers back to drinking. Maybe we'll step them onto the rosé and they're like, gosh, that's pretty nice. And then they'll step into something like Albarino and suddenly they're drinking a white wine. It's funny. But yeah, rosé is maybe the one, if someone's trying to please a crowd, I sometimes suggest that.
You guys do know this is how I spend my Friday night every Friday, right?
Absolutely.
Right here.
This is what winemaking is, right?
That's right. All day long.
I will point out that Mother's Day is right around the corner, and wine might be the perfect gift for Mother's Day. And I know all of you deliver.
Yeah, that's right. We're doing a 3 different rosé special for Mother's Day. We're calling it our Bouquet of Roses. So yeah, we made this the first time we've ever made 3 different rosés this year, but it's really fun. We ship.
That's awesome. We're doing it's a vertical, we do a small, it's a vineyard designated Syrah. It's only 4.3 acres, and we've been sourcing from this vineyard since 2003. It's called the Princess Syrah. And it's on Francisca's vineyard. It's a husband and wife team. They moved to Walla Walla specifically to plant the vineyard. And so it'll be a 3 vintage vertical for the princess in your life, whoever he or she may be. Or for your best mom, right? Your mom.
Our rosé is, it's a state grown, and it's our first estate rosé for Mother's Day. So it's a pretty special little wine, and it's from just a 1 acre block. And it's kind of our showpiece little rosé for Mother's Day this year.
So Coco, did you pick specifically for the rosé, or do you do Saignée?
We did. So we picked specifically, actually, all the way back from the beginning when bud break happened in the spring. So right now it's springtime and the vines are just starting to grow. We actually selected those rows of Syrah. We have an old block and a new block, and we took a good portion of the old block for this rosé. We selected those rows and grew it specifically for rosé. So not only did we pick it on earlier and with the focus of making rosé, but we actually farmed the grapes for that purpose, which basically meant that we fluffed the canopy a little bit more to give more dappled sunlight onto the grapes. We picked much earlier to capture all that acidity. We made a red wine, a Syrah red wine, and we picked it 4 weeks after we picked for the rosé. So they're entirely different wines from the same block, same vintage. And if you were to come to the tasting room when it opens again and taste them side by side, they are entirely different wines. The rosé spent 30 minutes on the skins, and the red wine spent about 2.5 weeks on the skins.
I'm going to steal that phrase, dappled sunlight.
That's why Syrah is my absolute favorite grape, actually. Because, okay, so if you had to, here's a question for you ladies, but I'm going to answer my own question first. If you could only take one grapevine to a deserted island, what grapevine would it be? For me, it would be Syrah, because not only can you make these incredibly rich, powerful red wines, but you can harvest it earlier and you can make gorgeous rosés. And so there it is. That's my desert island grape. What about you, Gal?
I like your Syrah choice, Melanie. You're a smart lady. It's very dynamic. You can do so much with it. You can even make a port with a Syrah, and it's quite lovely. I like it. I'll go to your island.
Okay.
I'm going to go to your island as well. I'm going to find coconuts and make something that pair somehow, some way, and fish. But I'm coming to your island as well, please.
Sounds good.
So, ladies, I'm going to give you a chance to give some advice. So, well, all different topics. I'll give each one of you a chance. What is something that you want Cougs to know about wine, about your winery? I mean, I don't know, about life in general, if that's where you want to go with it. And Annette, let's start with you.
Oh, goodness. What do I want Cougs to know about wine and life? Okay. I just think wine adds life to everything. I mean, I'm serious when I say it. It reminds me of being with my family, of being with my friends. I think there's a lot of seriousness, and you've heard our women winemakers talk about all of the intention that goes into every bottle. But there's a lot of love and passion that just surrounds a glass of wine. Breakups, marriages, a good day, a bad day, learning that we have 31 more days of shelter in place. I'll tell you what, these will probably be gone by about midnight. You can't come over, but I wish I could invite you over.
You probably need help. You need help drinking this.
Exactly. But it's about enjoying life with family and friends, and it's all about coming together. And whether it's in a Zoom meeting, it's like we get to come together and share our stories. And so it's really serious, but it's also a lot of fun. And don't be nervous when you're talking about it. Be curious and go out and explore other wines. Like if you like Melanie's or Coco's wines, try their other wines that you haven't tried yet. Go for it. It's really fun, and it's something you really can't go wrong.
Annette, I was lucky enough that you were one of the very first people that ever told me anything about tasting wines, talking to wineries. Most of my first conversations with wineries, because you taught me that. But I think you also gave me some fantastic advice that is right in line with what you were talking about. And that is, have fun. Like, I think that people sometimes feel like unless you know wine and you can talk about it properly, you should stay away. And you're like, no. And I believe that I told you that I hoped that at some point I would be able to describe wine in a way other than tasty and not tasty. And you were the one that said, it's okay. Tasty and not tasty is all right. Just enjoy it. So thank you for that.
But Kelly, I just have to point out the irony that you just asked us to advise Cougars about drinking alcohol. Is that well, I could just say that for anybody who's not already a Wine-By-Cougar member, they should do it. We are, and we enjoy all those packages that come. We're like, ooh, Wines by Cougars. And we start drinking it usually the same night. Really fun program.
Cheers to Cougs.
For sure.
Let's do a little cheers here, everybody.
Oh, cheers.
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 So as the sun sets, both in our time together and literally in my home office right now, I would say that the first Uncorked with Cougs has been absolutely amazing. Such a heartfelt thank you to Melanie, Annette, and Coco. I couldn't imagine having better people for the first one. I will also take this opportunity to make sure that everyone takes the opportunity to stay home and drink wine. With that, on a very last, our time together, if I could get a go Cougs.
Go Cougs!
Go Cougs!